My daughter quietly swapped my plate with my mother-in-law's. She whispered, "This time she won't hurt you." I didn't understand, until 10 minutes later when my mother-in-law collapsed and my wife screamed. Chapter 1. The dinner table Thanksgiving always brought a chill with it. Not from the November wind or the crisp air outside, but from the inside of my mother-in-law's house. It was the kind of place where warmth was a performance. The decorations perfect, the wine poured just right, the family photos arranged for compliments, but not connection. And every year we'd be summoned like actors to a stage, expected to smile, to eat, to pretend. But this year, something was different. The setup I carried a pumpkin pie through the front door, my daughter's small hand gripping mine tightly. "Remember to say thank you when Grandma gives you your slice," my wife whispered. My daughter didn't respond, she just looked up at me, watching. In the dining room, everything was as expected. My mother-in-law seated at the head of the table, smiling that tight, rehearsed smile. My wife's sister giggling too loudly, her boyfriend already half a glass deep, and my seat, always across from the throne, where I could feel my mother-in-law's eyes like knives against my skin. "Oh, you're finally here," she said, "traffic or just late again?" No hug, no welcome, just the usual jab. I smiled, small, measured. "Good to see you too, Carol." The first course plates were passed, food was served. Carol always insisted on plating each dish herself, a family tradition she called it. She set a dish in front of me, her tone sweet but hollow. "You're always so tired looking, dear. Eat well." My daughter sat beside me unusually quiet, she hadn't touched her juice. Her eyes darted between me and Carol. Then she did something strange. She leaned forward, silently, smoothly, and swapped my plate with my mother-in-law's. Nobody noticed, she didn't say a word, until she turned to me and whispered, "This time, she won't hurt you." I blinked. "What?" I whispered back. She just shook her head, eyes wide, serious in a way no child should be. The collapse 10 minutes later, the mood at the table began to shift. Carol dabbed her lips with her napkin. She tried to stand, paused. Then gripped the back of her chair. She muttered. "Is it hot in here?" Her face was flushed, sweating. She reached for her glass, and missed. The water spilled. "Mom," my wife said, rising from her seat. Carol's hands trembled, her pupils dilated, her body swayed once, twice. And then, like a marionette whose strings had been cut, she collapsed. The room erupted. "Someone call 911. "What's happening?" my wife screamed. The sister dropped her fork, and I sat there frozen, staring at the plate my daughter had given me, now in shards on the floor beside Carol. My daughter, still calm, reached for my hand under the table. "I saw her put something on your food again," she whispered. I didn't let her do it this time. In that moment, the room spun. Not with panic, but with clarity. Because suddenly, everything I had tried to dismiss, the random allergic reactions, the stomach aches after holidays, the subtle smirks from across the table, they all began to make sense. Chapter 2. The history between us. The ambulance lights flashed red and white across the walls of the dining room as they wheeled Carol out on a stretcher. My wife was hysterical. Her sister kept pacing, crying and whispering, "This can't be happening, not on Thanksgiving." But I didn't move. I sat in that same chair, hands still folded on the table, my daughter's tiny fingers still wrapped around mine, and all I could hear were her words, echoing like thunder behind my eyes. I didn't let her do it this time. And suddenly, all the things I'd buried, all the red flags I'd convinced myself were just misunderstandings, came crashing back. That one night in March 2 years ago, I ended up in the emergency room after Carol's birthday dinner. It was just chicken and salad, she had said, and I remember thinking it was odd how she had insisted on plating my portion herself, triple-checking the seasoning, waving off my attempt to help. I woke up that night sweating, doubled over with nausea, barely able to breathe. Hives broke out across my arms, my throat itched, I was gasping. The ER doctor said it was a severe allergic reaction, but I didn't have allergies, I never had. Could have been cross-contamination, the doctor said, or spice residue. Carol had smiled sweetly when we got home. "Must have been something in the wine," she said. "You always were the sensitive type." I wanted to believe her, because the alternative, that my wife's mother had deliberately poisoned me, was too insane to accept. Death by 1,000 snipes. But it wasn't just that night, it was every moment she got close to me. The time she accidentally used shrimp broth in the soup, knowing I hated seafood. The time she laughed when I slipped on her icy porch, while she held the salt bucket in her hand. The time she forgot to tell my boss I was sick when he called her landline. The call I was supposed to return that cost me a promotion. Always framed as mistakes, accidents, or just teasing. My wife would sigh and say, "That's just my mom. She tests people," but what my wife called tests were slowly breaking me down. My daughter never laughed. My daughter Mia had always been quiet, shy in a way that made adults think she wasn't paying attention. But she was. She noticed everything, especially when I was sick, or tired, or distant after visits to Carol's house. One time, when she was only 6, she asked me, "Why does Grandma only serve you? Mommy gets up for herself." Another time, "Why do you always look sad after family dinners?" I had no answers. I told myself she was imagining it. That I was imagining it. But she wasn't. She saw through the smile, through the happy Thanksgiving cards and the oversalted gravy. She was the only one who had been watching. With intent. Not fear. The denial I carried. I think deep down, I knew. But I wanted peace. I wanted to be the good husband, the bigger person. The man who kept the family together. So I made excuses for everything. "I'm just overreacting. Carol's old and forgetful. She's not malicious. Just controlling." But sitting there, holding Mia's hand, I realized the most terrifying truth. My daughter had seen more clearly at 8 years old than I had in a decade. And she had taken it upon herself to stop it. Not by lashing out. Not by telling anyone. But by simply switching the plates. And now, Carol was in the hospital, convulsing from whatever she meant from me. Chapter 3. What my daughter saw. The house was quiet again. After the ambulance pulled away, after my wife left to follow it to the hospital, after her sister and the boyfriend stumbled off in a daze, it was just me and Mia. We didn't speak for a while. She sat on the couch, legs tucked under her, clutching her favorite plush fox. Her eyes weren't red from crying. They were clear, focused, still watching. I sat beside her slowly, my hands shaking slightly. "Mia," I said, careful not to sound afraid. "What you said earlier, about Grandma. Can you tell me what you meant?" She didn't look at me. She just stared ahead. "I saw her," she said softly. "I've seen her do it before. Memory in fragments." Mia explained in short, clipped sentences, like puzzle pieces laid on the floor, one by one. 2 Christmases ago, she peeked into the kitchen and saw Grandma open a small brown bottle and sprinkle something into a saucepan. She watched Grandma only serve Daddy's plate from that pan. Everyone else's came from a different dish. She didn't understand what she was seeing. Not then. Last Easter, she saw Grandma take a napkin from her purse with powder inside. She thought it was just grown-up vitamins. But Grandma rushed to hide it when she noticed Mia staring. Then Thanksgiving last year, Grandma told Mia, "You know your daddy's tummy gets upset when he lies. That's why he always feels sick after dinner." I thought she was being weird, Mia said. But then I noticed, it only happened when she gave you your food. I waited for a sign. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked gently. Mia's voice cracked just slightly. "Because you always said Grandma was trying. And you told Mommy not to argue. I thought maybe. I was wrong." I closed my eyes. She wasn't wrong. She was just more afraid of ruining the family than she was of being right. Then she added, but this time, she looked mad. She was whispering to herself before dinner. She went into her purse again. I saw the napkin. "So you switched our plates?" She nodded. "I didn't want her to hurt you again. And I thought, if I was wrong, it wouldn't matter. But I wasn't wrong." The cold reality. I sat there in silence, my heart breaking in a dozen directions. For my daughter, forced to protect me from the adults who should have protected her. For myself, so willfully blind for so long. For the weight of truth now resting in this small, trembling child's hands. "You were very brave," I whispered. "You shouldn't have had to be. But you or Mia finally looked up at me, eyes glossy now. Am I in trouble?" I pulled her into my arms, held her close. No, sweetie. You're safe now. I promise. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure how true that was. Because Carol was still alive. And my wife, the woman who had ignored all the signs or worse knew and stayed quiet, was still her daughter. Chapter 4. The Investigation. It took less than 48 hours for the hospital to call. I had just dropped Mia off at school, hugging her tighter than usual, when my phone buzzed. Mr. Beckett, the voice said, professional but uneasy. We've completed preliminary toxicology screening on your mother-in-law. The substance in her system wasn't something we typically see in foodborne reactions. What was it? A pause. It appears to be a compound related to methylcellulose. Commonly found in certain laxatives, but in high doses, it can cause severe dehydration, cardiovascular strain, and collapse. Could it have been accidental? Not unless someone accidentally used 5 times the recommended dosage, and only in her portion. My blood ran cold. She had dosed the plate, the one meant for me. And my daughter had taken the hit away from me and handed it back. Like a mirror. Police involvement. Later that day, 2 detectives came by the house. 1 male, 1 female. Plain clothes, calm demeanor. We're here because the hospital flagged a suspected poisoning, the woman said. Am I a suspect? I asked. No, she said. You're a potential victim. They took my statement. Every detail. The note from my daughter. The plate switch. The history of unexplained reactions over the years. The ER visit 2 years ago. Mia's observations. When I told them about the brown bottle and the powder in the napkin, the male detective leaned forward. Did your wife ever witness anything unusual? I hesitated. Then I told them what I had long tried to forget. The conversation we never had 3 months ago. I had casually mentioned how sick I always felt after family dinners. Mia had been scrolling through her phone, barely listening. You're just stressed, she said. You know Mom tries. If you stopped being so dramatic, maybe she'd ease up. And then softer. Like an afterthought. Besides, I don't think she'd actually do anything to you. Not really, I remember the way she said it. Not, she'd never do anything. But, not really. As if a little poisoning was forgivable, as long as it was quiet. As long as it didn't disturb the photo albums or the dinner invitations. The guilt, or the fear. That night, Mia returned from the hospital, eyes puffy, voice raw. She's awake. And she doesn't remember anything. I nodded slowly. Convenient. She looked up at me sharply. You think she meant to poison you? I didn't answer. You think I knew? She snapped. You think I watched my mother hurt you and did nothing? Still, I said nothing. Because I was watching her. Really watching her. And what I saw in her face wasn't grief. It was panic. Not for what might have happened, but for what might be proven. The quiet fallout. The detectives called again 2 days later. We spoke with your wife's sister, they said. She confirmed your mother-in-law often insisted on serving your plate personally. Even joked about spicing it up. Said it was a running gag. Is that enough? To prove criminal intent? Not yet. But if your daughter's story holds up, and if we find any trace of that compound in her purse, it could escalate. They weren't moving fast. Not yet. Because no one wanted this to be real. But I knew the clock had started ticking. And this time, I wasn't brushing it off. I was keeping every voicemail, every receipt, every memory. Because this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about a child who saved her father. And a mother who might have let her own mother poison him for years. Final Chapter 5. The Quietest Victory. A week later, the house was quieter than it had ever been. Not peaceful, not yet. But still. Like the pause before a deep breath after years of suffocation. Mia had been sleeping in my bed lately. She'd wake up from small, frightened dreams, whispering. She can't hurt you anymore, right? And I'd whisper back. No, sweetheart. Not anymore. But even I didn't know if it was true. The call. It came just before dawn. Detective Alvarez. The woman from before. Mr. Beckett. We executed a search warrant last night. We found a prescription bottle in your mother-in-law's vanity. Half full. Labeled as dietary supplement. But testing confirmed the same compound from the toxicology report. And the dosage matches prior ER cases. We also found traces of the same powder inside a folded napkin in her purse. We're forwarding the case to the prosecutor. I didn't say anything. Just listened. For once, the silence didn't feel heavy. It felt clean. The final confrontation. That evening, Maya came home from the hospital. She'd been avoiding me, claiming family management. But I knew she'd been consulting lawyers. She stood in the doorway, eyes red, voice low. She confessed, she said. Said she only meant to make you sick. Said she wanted to humble you. To make you depend on us more. I nodded slowly. That sounds like her. She's being charged, Maya continued, her lip trembling. They'll probably offer a plea deal. Community confinement. Maybe probation. And you? I asked quietly. What are you being offered? She flinched. Don't do this. Do what? Make this my fault. I looked at her for a long moment. The woman I had once trusted with everything. The woman who'd seen her mother's cruelty and called it quirks. The woman who'd watched me suffer and called it overreacting. I'm not making it your fault, I said softly. You did that all on your own. She turned away, tears falling silently. When she left the house, she didn't take anything. Not her coat, not her phone. Just her car keys. And I didn't stop her. A father and daughter, Mia was waiting by the window. Her plush fox in her arms. Is mommy gone? She asked. For now, I said. She needs time. Will grandma come back? I kneeled beside her, met her eyes. No, sweetheart. Grandma's going somewhere she can't hurt anyone again. She thought about that for a moment, then nodded. Good. She climbed into my lap, small arms wrapping around my neck. Can we have dinner here from now on? She asked. Just us. I smiled. Yeah, just us. Epilogue. The dinner we finally enjoyed. A month later, we had our first meal together that felt normal. No tension, no fear, no pretending. Just me and Mia at the table, candles lit, laughter echoing faintly through the house that had once felt like a battlefield. She insisted on setting the table herself. Carefully placing each plate, each fork, each napkin. When she finally brought my plate to me, she smiled. Now it's safe, she said. I made it myself. And I believed her. Final reflection: some people think revenge is about payback. That it's loud, fiery, cathartic. But sometimes, it's quiet. It's a courtroom file stamped closed. It's a little girl's whisper. This time she won't hurt you. And it's the first dinner you eat without fear. That's the kind of revenge that doesn't just punish evil. It ends it. Was this revenge perfectly justified? Or should the storm have raged harder? Drop your verdict below. I read every single one. Hit like if you crave justice and share this story with someone who needs its fire.